Hey, we're Saints. Father Chris here. Welcome to our Crucifixional Life. I'm glad to have you beautiful people as we wrap up the week. I've been talking about me and my dark secrets all week. Today, I'm going to stop talking about me and I'm going to talk about somebody else. I'm going to do so through a story of my, that happened, a powerful, major impact story in my life. When I was 7 years old, my father was killed. He was driving home from work and a girl was drunk driving, swerved into his lane, hit him head on, boom, end of story. My sister was 6, and in the blink of an eye, a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a young married woman who became a widow found themselves without a dad, without a father, without a husband, right? I mean, it's a powerful thing in a person's life. And I don't say it to whine. I actually say it more to laud my mother. Because in that moment, as a young woman, and keep in mind, we were raised, my sister and I, in a small dinky town in West Virginia, right? My mother had come from California, from Los Angeles, so she's a big city girl. Now all of a sudden she's in this little dinky little town in the boonies of West Virginia, right? Whitesville, West Virginia, with nobody, right? I mean, the town had nobody. There was only 150, 200 people in the whole town. And all of a sudden, here she is alone with 2 little kids, right? And now what? And it would have been easy. You could even imagine that my mother would have just wanted to, throw up her hands and throw in the towel and be like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. And she in her own life could have become a wreck, And yet she became the most crucifixional person I know in my life. I mean, she immediately, I don't mean like the next day, I mean in that moment, she immediately thrust off all needs, all desires, all self-focused things, and immediately devoted her attention to my sister and I. I mean, immediately she became crucifixional, right? Like we hear in Leviticus, right? When Jesus is talking about what are the 2 great commandments, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And another is like it, comes from Leviticus 19, to love your neighbor as yourself, right? Immediately she took the position that she had to be neighbor to her 2 small children, a 6 and a 7-year-old, right? I mean, this is... I don't have the words. If I'm anything, if I was able to fight through all of the hardship in my life, it's because she was so crucifixional in hers and gave us the world. And we didn't grow with the silver spoon in our mouth, but we grew safe and with instruction. You know what I mean? Like she was willing to sacrifice herself for the sake of her 2 children. And this thought of Leviticus 19, it even carries over into the New Testament. In Philippians, the great apostle Paul, chapter 2, he tells us the following. And I'm sure you know this. We hear, complete my joy by being of the same mind, having the same love, being in full accord and of one mind. Do nothing, verse 3, from selfishness or conceit, but in humility count others better than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but to the interests of others. And my mother did that. And so I'm grateful to her. My life I owe to her, as does my sister. And my children do, because who knows what I would be if I was even still alive after my earlier life, if she wasn't that rock. And so all of this is to say to you out there, I can't be alone. And maybe you still have your parents, or they didn't die in tragic fashion, or maybe even worse, maybe some of you never even knew your parents. But all of us, whatever it may be, we've all got something in there that's heavy, that's a burden, that causes us to think and look really inward and direct all things towards, like Adam, which we started on day 1 of this week on Monday, self-focused, ego, hubris, right? We've all got something that wants us to look inward and take care of self. And yet we know that doesn't lead anywhere but to mediocrity. The converse, the flip side, the alternative is that you can start living a crucifixional life. And that means at its highest level is to sacrifice my will to do God's will, right? Remember, Adam in Eden did his will, led to death. Christ in Gethsemane did God's will and led to an empty tomb, right? So there's the choices that are out there. And in our own lives, we have that opportunity to be crucifixional. The highest level of sacrifice of my will for the sake of God's is the love of neighbor. In fact, I think that's God's greatest desire for all of us, or greatest commandment. The number 1 on his list of all the things that he wills for us is that we love other people. We put others ahead of us. Now look, we live in a world that is very selfish and self-focused. It's hard to do that, and so I know you struggle with it. We always want to take care of ourselves. Get mine, right? And I'm number 1, all that kind of stuff. You do you, our casinos local here say, and L'Oreal because you're worth it, and Burger King, you're the king, right? What's the slogan say?
You rule.
You rule. I mean, right? You can see, like, there's a lot out there pushing against us to look at other. But if you're ready, And I'm telling you, giving back to others, helping others, whether it be financially, with your hands, with your time, with your mind, with your heart, with your love, when you give back, you feel amazing. I mean, it's biology, baby. It's like, you know you did the right thing. You know you are emulating Jesus Christ when you give back to others, especially when it comes at a cost for yourself, right? This is the highest point of being an exceptional person, of being a warrior saint, is when you are crucifixional for the sake of someone particularly in need. And so how do you do it? I mean, you can keep going down the path you're going and be selfish and self-focused. It's there and it's easy. But if you're really ready to get after it and get some and make your life transformational, to find yourself exceptional, you've got to be crucifixional in all things, including the way you love other people. Now, how do you do that, right? I can understand that that's, not always a clear or easy thing to do, especially with all the temptations, like we said, that are pulling us away, and the ego we fight with that's pulling us away. Well, in our battle plan, we have, the final module, which is hands, because your hands, you serve other people, right? And in this module, we learn, look, some very practical things. First, the focus on what it means to give back to other people. Then we have very practical teaching and instructions that if you watch these videos, you'll know how to do it. Even we address the concept of how do you deal with the homeless guy or gal on the side of the freeway who's asking for money, right? Do we give while they're going to drink or whatever, like all those things that we struggle with. How do we deal with that kind of stuff? How do we overcome all of those temptations and be crucifixional and sacrifice in our lives? And look, here's the reward. When you do that, you can stay how you are and be mediocre. But the reward for living a crucifixional life is A, that amazing feeling when you know you've done right. B, that amazing feeling because you know you have put God's will ahead of your own. And even more importantly, you become one in God's eyes who says, well done, good and faithful servant. Doesn't mean we're perfect and going to get into heaven, but it does mean that we are on the path to looking more and more like Jesus Christ in our everyday life. So if you want it, it's pretty simple. Like, visit warriorsaints.org, that's our website. Subscribe to the 6-part plan, or even better, do the bundles so you can also get scripture and get after it, right? Just watch the videos and get some. Start living crucifixionally. I promise you this. Don't do it, you're going to be tomorrow just like you are today. Start doing it, you got a great shot of waking up the next day as an exceptional human being. Love you, beautiful people. We'll be back on Sunday, Orthros Liturgy, 9 and 10 a.m. Pacific. And then Monday, as usual, we'll be back to live stream. Have a great weekend. Be safe. And as always, keep walking on the way of the warrior saint.